As usual, we start with the segment The World at a Glance. After the Vietnamese Communist Party chief Phan Phu Trong held talks with the Chinese Chinese President Xi Jinping on Saturday, China and Vietnam promised to settle their differences regarding territorial claims in the South China Sea. Conflicting territorial claims have become a stumbling block in bilateral relations, but China and Vietnam have jointly patrolled and explored for oil in the Beibu Gulf, setting an example for the handling of South China Sea disputes. Beibu Port in South China's Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region now sends 26 ships a week to Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand and Myanmar, almost all the major ports in Southeast Asia. So, such success stories show that cooperation rather than confrontation can yield more win-win results and larger-scale cooperation. There's a saying in China, when water comes, a channel is formed, which means when conditions are ripe, success can be achieved. This case is a prime example that bilateral consultation, instead of turning to third-party arbitration, can solve the differences between China and its neighbors on issues of demarcation. US President-elect Donald Trump has labeled German Chancellor Angela Merkel's stance on refugees a catastrophic mistake and said the policy would lead to even more countries leaving the European Union after Britain. He added that Brexit wouldn't have occurred if Britain hadn't been forced to take in so many refugees. In her New Year's speech, Chancellor Angela Merkel affirmed that her government will win the fight against terrorism with compassion and denied that her open-door mass migration policy was wrong. She said that with the images of bombed-out Aleppo in Syria, it is important to remember once again how important and correct it was that Germany helped in the past year those who need protection. It is a sad thing to admit that compassion for the suffering of others is becoming more and more distant as politicians look for a quick fix to the world's problems. Merkel, it seems to me, is an island of stability that the world as a whole would sorely miss if she were ousted in this year's German elections. And major world powers gathered in Paris on Sunday for a Middle East peace conference aimed at jump-starting the defunct Israeli-Palestinian peace process. But there was deep alarm that if the future President Trump moves the US embassy to Jerusalem, then conditions will be set for another upsurge in violence in the region. The status of Jerusalem is one of the most sensitive and complex issues of the entire conflict. The Palestinians view East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state, but Israel proclaims the entire city as its capital. Trump's proposed ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, an extreme right-winger, has already questioned the two-state solution and made it clear on his appointment that he looked forward to taking up his post in Jerusalem. But moving to Jerusalem would mark a reversal of almost 7 decades of US policy that has until now decreed that the final status of the city should be determined in peace talks with the Palestinians. So, on yet another issue, the world is left wondering what a new Trump presidency will mean for international peace and diplomacy. We can only wait and see.